yes to 8 o'clock in the morning. For those of you that don't know, Judy's a night owl. She probably hits her stride around midnight. So
At the earliest.
at the earliest. Um, so I didn't know if you would say yes, and I'm glad you did.
For you, anything, you know that.
So one of the reasons I asked is I've known you in terms of our Keller Williams family, you're probably longer than anybody except maybe three other people.
Oh.
And we've been through a lot just in that 15 years. And through that, you've been able to share bits and pieces of your story with me. And you've had a pretty adventurous and interesting life. So just take it from there. Start at the start.
Thank you, Ashley. Well, we've been talking about diversity, and I thought I would continue with that topic because I have a couple of interesting things to say about it and a couple of interesting things about my life when it comes to that. Being born in the 40s, you guys don't know what it was like. It was definitely, different. And we've, as a world, we have come a long way, actually, even though it seems like baby steps. It's still quite a bit. Um, all the civil rights acts were not in place at that time. So the consciousness of, well, now they have a movie out about women's rights. I haven't seen that. That would be interesting. But other than that, we really hadn't gotten very far with anything.
And where were you born, Judy?
I was born in Chicago. So interesting place to be born because it had both high and lows of cultural and economics. We were born in the right. I was born right in the center of south side of Chicago, and then I want to start my story with some awareness of prejudice and bias that I had. I don't know how I remember this, but when I was in first grade, I had an interesting occasion to recognize some bias about women, girls versus boys. Like it was better to be a boy somehow. I don't know why, but anyway, that's the way it was at the time. And I was walking in the hallway, single file with my class, and the acoustics were so gorgeous that I just let out a loud, ah! I was like first grade. So of course they had to punish me. And the punishment was to go sit in the second grade class and listen to them talk about math. And I had heard that boys were good at math, but girls were not. And I thought, well, I'm going to be the rebel here. And I listened to the class. And I went, I understand this. I could do this. I'm only in first grade, but I can do second grade math. Wow. So that kind of like set the tone for me, wanting to dispute any authority's view on whatever it was. So that was the first indication of some kind of bias. Then we moved out to the suburbs. We're a very wealthy suburb in Chicago, but it was extremely WASP. I don't know if you guys know what WASP is. WASP means White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. So white Anglo-Saxon, that's not me. I'm not a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. So there I was in this class in the school, and everybody didn't understand, why I didn't go to church. Well, my family they were brought up in orphanage. So they really didn't have much of a cultural background, but we were culturally Jewish. So
who was brought up in an orphanage, Judy?
My parents.
Both of them?
Yes.
That's interesting.
Yes. It is interesting, and it created a certain lack of community for me. Yeah. So anyway, they didn't understand that in their culture, I would go to hell. so I definitely an outsider in that culture. The class picture looked like 25 blonde kids and me.
You can always get picked out.
Yeah, it was easy to find, definitely. And that, that bothered me because what I understood about Christianity was you're supposed to love each other and accept each other or something like that. That's what Jesus said. And that was not what I was getting from these great Christian people. So there I was with another thing in my face that didn't seem fair. Definitely a cultural bias. Also, I auditioned for the Christmas play. I mean, we did Christmas there. So I wanted to play Mary. I mean, she was a Jew, after
Yeah,
all.
seems
But
appropriate.
the pretty blonde girl got it, Karen Crone. Her hair looked like a doll, like that spun gold thing, and she got the part. And I'm going like, this is because she looks like the vision that Christians have of what Mary would look like. I don't
Right.
know. These things bothered me when I was a kid. I was just a kid, but
How old were you for that Christmas play?
second grade.
Okay.
So
And
like,
you remember her name. Isn't it funny the
oh,
things that
she was
stick
my
with us?
friend later on.
Okay.
She actually lived like down the street from me, Karen Crone. Yeah, I remember a lot of stuff. Um, anyway, after we lived in that little um, suburb for 5 years, we moved back to inner city. But this time we had a big fancy house because my father was making good money. He was a lawyer. So when we moved back there, um, I was also going to this camp. It was called Circle Pines Center, and it was a very socialistic camp. I mean, we picked vegetables, we went on hay rides, we had boyfriends. I had a boyfriend. His name was Larry Howard, and he was a football um, star, and he was black. So he and he and my he and his best friend and me and my best friend, we'd go out double dating, and we'd go around to places that wouldn't let us in.
And
We would,
this is in the 50s?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, no, well, probably early '60s.
Okay.
So they wouldn't let us in, and we would get a kick out of this. This was like because we were little kids. I mean, we were kids. We could get away with this because we were kids. But we would get to the door of the bowling alley or the whatever, and they wouldn't let us in. They wouldn't let us to the lunch counter.
Because your boyfriend was black?
Yes, right. Yeah, that's right. So I was pretty activated at that point. I mean, we were in liberal Southside Chicago, and Pete Seeger performed there. You people who don't know who Pete Seeger was, if I had a hammer and This Land Is Your Land, those are his songs.
Yeah.
So no matter who made them popular later on, they were his songs. So we would go see him, and we would go, and the big Bill Brunzi, he was a big blues guy in Chicago, and he was my girlfriend's mother's boyfriend. So that it was pretty interesting. So that's the way I grew up. I was very conscious of social differences, social amours, and non-social mores, and how to be a rebel, and that's what we did. That's what we were like. So anyway, my life went on like that. I was always like a little bit outside, and later on, I became a musician, and I was in bands, and I was definitely moving toward management there, and I managed bands and I booked bands, and I had to handle the. It's a good old boys club. Music is, unless you're the girlfriend of the band leader, or something like that. I didn't do that. I just did. I was the manager, not at first, but later on I was, and so I had to prove that I knew what I was talking about. So I became quite organized that way. And again, the male female dilemma, that's something that I was taught in my family that I did not have to follow. I did not have to have a white picket fence to feel
Yeah.
fulfilled. I didn't.
Some would say you almost reverse the gender roles in that rebel state. You
Well,
went towards things that you were probably going to be the only woman in that space.
well, I like to play music. I like to sing.
Yeah.
I didn't care about anything else. That was my driving force. That I didn't care what it took. That's what I was going to do. So I did it.
Yeah.
I mean, I had people telling me I couldn't sing, but I just don't let these things stop me. I don't see why you should, really. So anyway, yeah, being an outsider was a very important situation for me because I didn't feel like I had to stick to the stereotype. I didn't feel like I had to be accepted. I didn't feel like I had to prove that I was the same as everybody else because I knew already I wasn't, and I wasn't ever going to be.
And you
And
didn't
then
want to
you
be.
get, but what I did get good is was negotiation. I got pretty good at that. So there's a book called Animal Farm by George Orwell, and in that uh, in that book, the barnyard animals get organized, and they say all animals are equal. But then the pig, who was kind of I forget his name, but he was the leader. He said, "Well, all animals are equal, but some are more equal than others." You know, it's it's funny when you think about that. What does that mean? So the leader starts to put himself above others because he imagined himself superior, and that's where it all starts.
Yeah.
That's where it all starts. It starts like we're all part of a community, and then it's like, well, yeah, but I'm leading the community because I know this, that. And then the problem comes in is who decides what is superior. So who decides?
Whoever's in control.
Well, yeah, exactly. But they base it on what they have to offer, not necessarily what is realistically an important part of society.
Right.
So there are actually like seven, eight intelligences, and these things are not emphasized in our society. I mean, people love music, but is it taught in schools? I mean, how much art is really emphasized? People make fun of people who do drawings that aren't perfect or sing that it's not perfect. They make fun of that when actually it's just part of a process. And people have these intelligences. They have spatial intelligence. They have physical ability intelligence. They have these different intelligences that don't have anything to do with verbal or math. If you happen to have verbal and math, you're going to get along pretty well in this society. But if you don't, then your skills and your abilities are disregarded. So, say you come from a family that's, I don't know, all musical, say, for example. Um, if you get really good, you might be recognized and admired. But if you don't get really good and you don't make money, you're considered not successful, which is,
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But what makes sense to me is we have to start recognizing people for the skills and the abilities that they do have. So I took a look at this thing about in and out groups and prejudice and all that from a long view because way back in the tribal days, things were very different then. But we spent thousands and thousands of years surviving as a tribe. And the most important thing in the tribe was the loyalty to our own kind, staying unified, protection from other tribes or animals for that matter, um, because we were competing for territory. We were competing for resources, whether it be water, food, whatever it was. We had to compete because we were living in scarcity. Scarcity is what makes us afraid that we won't have enough. So we're willing to go to no ends to fight off the other side. It's us versus them. And this is so embedded in us. It's so embedded in our minds are reactive to that. And we believe in scarcity, unfortunately. And people who are different, they want to take away what we have. So if they're different, we don't want them to be near us because we're actually thinking that they're going to take something away from us, whatever it is. Certainly that's apparent with the black-white situation. That's very obvious. The fear is palpable. So, okay, and the fear is used to control people. So the leaders are going to say, yeah, you have to be afraid of these people. So let's unify and fight against them because, I'm going to save you. I'm going to be the leader. I'm going to take you out and fight against these bad, horrible people that don't believe in this and that, whatever it is.
Well, and Judy, it was a biological necessity, as you said, for
That's what I'm saying.
eons. It no
Eons.
longer is.
I know, but you see, we are hardwired.
Yeah.
So that to understand that, I mean, how can you combat something that you don't get what the root is? And that, to me, that's the basic root. That for eons we have been plugged into this scarcity, fear, syndrome, where anybody who's different, we need to get rid of them, or we need to kill them, or whatever it is we're going to do with them. And yes, it's no longer necessary. Still, it manifests.
It still manifests because it's all in
People
there in
believe
all
it.
of us. And unless you're intentional about evolving past that, you can get triggered right back to it.
Right. And because it is there. I mean, we are fear-bound people, even if we are, developed, and we have to deal with that irrational fear. We have to say, well, are we really afraid of that? Or is it just something that we inside of us that we're insecure about? Is that really something to be afraid of? Because the body doesn't know the difference. The body feels it like fear. That means we need to do something, fight, flight, whatever. So, okay.
Real quick, because a lot of them may not know, what's your professional training besides music?
Well, music, yeah, negotiation by default. I have studied. I have studied many. I've studied things from the Far East. I've studied different meditation and breathing techniques. I am AA, which means that I have studied the way that people relate to a substance. Uh, I don't know what to say. My study has been my life.
Well, let's do it professionally then. What did you do before real estate?
Music.
Nothing else.
Well, I am a fortune teller. Don't laugh. I had to study to do that.
Yeah.
And some people don't believe in it, and they think it's the devil, but actually, it is a study of human abilities, human trends, human abilities. There's like 1,000 factors in any human being, at least 1,000 factors that you have to understand the difference between them. Anyway, so that's astrology. So I studied that on my own. I have taken massive amounts of courses that don't give degrees. I don't care about. So what else can I tell you? Am I a counselor? Yeah, you'd be surprised.
That's where I was going. You've done a lot in the mental health space.
I have, but there's no degree or kind of a little sign you can put over my name. My mother was extremely. She was one of the smartest people I know. Uh, we called her the Dragon Lady, but nevertheless, she could take my friends apart, dissect them in front of me. The way she would analyze them, I mean, it was amazing. So, we did a lot of that, and I really hated it because I wanted to apply love and compassion to the situation, and that was something that she wasn't really very good at.
No.
So that's what I had to learn, love and compassion. I had a big lesson in my life about that. So I've done rebirthing. I don't know if you know what that is, but I am certified as a rebirther and a emotional release counselor. So I can take people through the past. I can put them in a meditative state, and I know how to do these kind of things. We did training on that.
Yeah.
So, So quite a lot of things like that. And, that,
And Judy, what was pushing that? Because that's
oh,
what I find fascinating. Not everybody goes towards that path, and that always leads to a lot of self-reflection, right? But what caused you to go?
well, in a nutshell, I didn't want to be like my mother.
Okay.
Well, I didn't completely not want to be like her, but, I wanted to overcome some of these difficulties, the isolation, the anger, the fear, all of these things that she was run by. And, although I admire her in some ways, I don't want to be that kind of person, isolated, cold, and uh, you know, inaccessible
Yeah.
for society. So I worked hard to become someone else beside that.
Yeah.
And I remember being very young. I was probably 14, and I went to, they sent me to a psychiatrist because I was just having a lot of trouble adjusting to having to be loyal to her and at the same time wanting to be my own person. And I learned a lot there. I became very excited about the possibility of actually branching out and being who I am. So, I would say that was very formative for me to be that way. And I've always been fascinated by it and fascinated by the different ways that people are. People are so different, and it's not abnormal and normal psychology. It's the myriad ways that people are talented or 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 stunted or lacking or they're brilliant, and they're all these different things all together. And what always amazes me is each one of us have this life that we hardly appreciate, that we could say, oh, I'm me, and I'm 100% a living sentient being. And oh my God, every one of us, the millions of people on the earth, each one of us has that in us. Oh, that's so overwhelming when you really think of it.
Yeah.
So I respect that. Um, so let's go back to this. Let's go back to how, unless you want to ask another question.
I'll ask when it hits me.
Okay. Um, how people gain put control and power and superiority by using the fear that people have of strangers. Conform, stay with your kind, or you'll be ostracized, cast out. Uh, and most people indulge in this thinking, even if they don't think they are their country, their religion, their race, their sex. They are the best. I mean, we're all the best, right? We know that.
Yep.
So they depreciate and dehumanize other people. I mean, being a Jew, 80 years ago, they were putting Jews in concentration camps and gassing them. I mean, talk about persecution.
And you were born just at the end of that.
I was born during the war. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I was born during the war, and so I didn't really experience it firsthand, but it was very close to all of us. So, example: women are less intelligent, strong, or able to lead than men. Some of us think that way. Even women think that way. Blacks are uneducated and dangerous and angry. Oh, is that sad? Mexicans are lazy and shifty. You thought I was Hispanic. That's funny.
Yeah.
uh, Chinese are sneaky and devious. Uh, Non Christians will never go to heaven, and God will never love them unless they convert. Right? Yeah. Yeah. And how many of us have thoughts like this and make judgments when we see others who are homeless, uh-huh, fat, ugly, old,
Or young.
or young? That's another one. Yeah, that definitely. We're probably all guilty in indulging in this kind of thinking. We do it. Oh my God, don't deny it. That is what prejudice is. But the nice thing, and I do bless COVID because I think it might be a gift from God or someone, because they have evened the playing field. We are all equally at risk, and the whole world is involved in this. And suddenly, survival is actually a global issue, and we're in it together.
Yeah.
And what a gift that is, actually, if we can see it that way. Not that I like people to die, but we have become one.
Well, and I believe God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, is gives you circumstances to give you the opportunity to come together,
I do
right?
too. I do too. Somehow or other, yeah.
Yep.
So, okay. Now, so if we want to change prejudice in our society, it's not just Mexicans, blacks, or whatever, whoever, Jews, whatever. It's not that. It's the way that we are thinking. We have to stop thinking about us versus them. I mean, it's okay to play games. It's okay to cheer your team, but don't hate the other team. It's okay to wave our flag. We love our country. It's good, but don't hate other countries. They're doing their thing. They have a right to do that. And don't close your mind to different religions because they're not like yours. We have this country based on the idea that it's free to practice different religions. So why are Irish people fighting each other? I mean, it's awful. You know, they're all Irish, but they're a different culture, whatever. So I mean, why do that? So um, anyway, the different ways of thinking, they are necessary for us to grow and develop. They're like they're gifts. So share them with people. Share your thoughts. Share your ideas, and don't condemn somebody else that doesn't think like you, because there might be a gift in there. And that what I'd like to open to questions, but I'd also like to say that Michael Jackson wrote a great song, and the words are, "I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. If you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and then make a change."
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
So Robert put in the chat box that he wants to know what Bill's take from the other side is on COVID. What's his spirit message?
I love that. I love that. But,
He said, I know you'd have something funny to say.
I'm reading it. Robert, actually, your guess is as good as mine. But Bill was very off the cuff. He'd say, he'd probably come up with something really clever to say and make us all laugh, is what he'd probably do. And he would, hi, and he would probably say something like, he probably turned it into an acronym. What do you call a, he, like COVID.
Acronym.
Acronym, yeah. He'd probably turn it into an acronym and make us all laugh. I know he would, because that's what he did. He could figure out funny things to make it, even if they were ridiculous. And because you have to lighten up. you know and I know that people in the hospital are not lightening up because they're sick, but I had a lot of family members from Bill's side. I'm starting to be friends with his grandson, and he's coming over and helping me in my house every week, and he told me last week that he loved me.
Aww.
And it was so precious. But so I'm getting another look on Bill, because he wants to know about Bill, and he wants to know about his grandfather from that side of the family. But his mother's side, most of them did get sick from COVID, and they all got well again.
Good.
So, that's a remarkable thing. I mean, I believe that you can get well. Sometimes you're sick because you're just depleted, or it depends. I mean, people are vulnerable Why do people get sick in the first place anyway? Do they get sick just because their immune system is down, because they're not loving themselves, they're not taking care of themselves? I mean, I believe there's some of that in there. I'm not saying it's completely that way. I know that one of the reasons Bill died of cancer was because he went through a lot of anger and pain in his life. A lot that you guys don't even know about. I mean, the fact was that he spent most of his life very, very angry. And I had to point it out to him. And he thought, oh, I'm just passionate. I went, no, it's a little different. And anger will wear away on your immune system. Anger and resentment and all of these things are poisonous to our bodies. So I'm not I'm not saying it's completely like that, but it is. We are become vulnerable physically because we don't are not loving ourselves enough.
Well, if you look at the word disease, dis-ease, it's the body not at ease.
Yes, yes, that's totally true. Yes. So I mean, people should take a look at that. They need to take care of themselves and love themselves. And there's so many people that beat themselves up. I have a friend and she's depreciating herself, but she doesn't even realize it. So I have to point it out to her. I said, well, you just said that. Do you mean that really? And it turns out it's kind of the script she got from her mother. That was her
What
script.
so often is.
Yeah. And the script she
So,
got
Judy,
from,
for you, since we've been, you're so social, right? You're like me. We need people. How have you been dealing with this in your own self care since March?
I am social and I do need people, but I have not been that, I have been quite isolated. I mean, I really have been. I used to be more social. Bill and I, we made our life like an island. We were so happy like that. We liked it like that. He likes it like that. But he ended up being more social than me because I was inside on the computer and he was out there talking to people.
Yeah. So, how have you been occupying your time since March?
Well, I took Bold, which was a big step for me, but because I could do it online, that worked better for me. I started the Zoom program that I do every Friday night, which is awesome. I love it. It's like having my own little TV show, and I've invited guests like where's Sam Cook? Is he still on there? Scott Cook. Yeah, Scott was my last guest and did an awesome job talking about rentals and the whole complex of renting and leasing and things like that. So he did an awesome job. So every week I have a different guest. I'm hoping that maybe one of you guys will be my guest. I'm kind of shy to ask you anyway. So I've been promoting that. It takes a lot of time. I closed an escrow this week. I'm working with a new client. I've been working hard on my phone conversations, so I've actually got to kind of like them and be friends with some of these people that I'm actually calling. So I've definitely moving.
15 years in. Get comfortable on the phone.
I always hated it, I did hate it, but now I start to like it more. And since I'm forcing myself to do it, I might as well like it. And making those phone calls is like kind of a ritual for me. I have to do it every day, except for the days that I do the Zoom conference.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm getting closer to a lot more people, and I think I have about 10 people in the wings waiting to move forward and other people that are getting pre-qualified. So yeah, I've been busy. I haven't not been busy,
Yeah.
And then I've cleaned out my house. This is like, you're not going to believe what I did to my house. My whole garage was completely filled of boxes and vats. The whole garage. So now it's down to about one third, maybe one fourth, and then I have a whole load of stuff to bring to recycling, computers and
Good
things
for
like that.
you, Judy.
Oh
That's a
no, it's
huge accomplishment.
and like my office, because I could move things out of the office into the garage. I have set up my office. It's much more functional now. So it's still not there yet, but I mean, all the boxes that were on the floor, I took them out. I had the carpets cleaned. I, I worked on my garden. I'm very busy. So I don't stop being busy, and sometimes I take a break and You know, I love going out with my dogs. Um, I've had lunch with a few friends. It's been really nice, you know. And, I really haven't felt it the way that some people feel isolated.
Yeah.
I don't feel isolated.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
So,
So
and I
yeah,
don't,
there's a few people on here. I mean, Judy's got a heck of a life experience. Ask some questions.
yeah, come on, talk to me. Talk to me. Carmen, thank you. Yeah. Oh, salam. All right.
Hi, Judy. This
Hi,
is,
Carmen.
I really appreciate this interview. I can relate a lot. And I'm sorry, I was late and I didn't hear where you were from.
I'm from Chicago. I grew up on the south side, moved to the suburbs, and then back to the south side. Uh, Chicago is a very diverse and intellectual place. I mean, there's just lots and lots of culture there, and my parents were interested in that, so we would spend a lot of time going to plays and operas and concerts. You know, we did all that when I was young, ballet, all of that, um, and we also loved nature. So you know, there were lots of beautiful things to see.
How'd you make your way to San Diego? What brought you out here?
Oh boy, do we have enough time? So I went to school at UC Berkeley. I
Of
entered.
course you did.
I was in the first piece sit down. Of course, yes. Anyway, I was an out of state acceptance. I had very high grades, and I went there at the age of 17. So I had some friends, and they were all a year older than me, and they went to Europe the second year that we were actually roommates. So they went to Europe, and I stayed and went and stayed in school, and they came back, and we were going to go back to Europe because one of my girlfriends, she had a German boyfriend. The other one, she had a news correspondent boyfriend. And we were all going to go back there and go to Europe. So I was on my way, and somewhere along the way, I met a guy who I didn't really like him very much. But anyway, what can I say? So I was in Chicago getting ready to leave from Berkeley. And then my friend called me and she said, I can't go. My boyfriend broke up with me.
Uh,
So I was stuck with a guy, Doug. His name was Doug. And we went to Europe. And after giving him all my money, I told him to get lost.
in
What
Europe?
Yes.
what year were you in Berkeley?
I was in Berkeley 1960 to 1964.
Was that
Wow.
pre Flower Children Day, or was that
It was pre because I was at Beatnik. Yes. And then it was going into the flower power thing. And we did the sit downs. We were in the Abbey, what's his name? Uh, we were in all the early sit downs. These Berkeley were some of the first ones.
were you part of the feminist movement, like with Betty Friedan and the National Organization of Women? No.
No, no, I was already free. No, no, I was. What we were doing at Berkeley, where they were, there were sit downs about the war, basically about Vietnam,
Uh-huh.
and it was really about the war, I think. And a lot of the young men in my generation died in the war. A lot of them. And then, okay, so where are we now? I got to Europe.
You gave all of your money to him and kicked him out.
Yeah, and I was in Paris, and I was sitting in cafes. I mean, that's what you did. You sat in cafes and watched life go by. And I met this young German artist. I still have some of his artwork. Was amazing, and he would sit there for hours doing little pen marks, little tiny little. And I'm going like, how can anybody have that patience? Oh my God! And I would watch him, and I'm going like, this is insane. I learned that you can do something very nice and beautiful and worthwhile by just being patient. And that was a big skill for me to learn, definitely. Anyway, I'm digressing. Okay, so I lived in Europe for about 8, 9 years. Well, first I went there and then I came back and then I went again. When I came back to Berkeley, I felt myself, this is when Kennedy died, 1964. And I felt myself very out of place. I, I had aged like 15 years being in Europe. So I went back to Europe and then I lived there for about 8 years. I lived in France and I lived in Spain and I lived in Sweden. I lived all over the place. I sang on the street. I did paintings on the street, and that's how I lived. I did that, for years. And lived in a car, lived in an attic. It was la boheme. What can I say? It was quite a life. And eventually, me and my boyfriend, who I married later, the Swedish guy, we went to Japan. And after that, we went to Guam. And in Guam, I became a school teacher. I sang I was in a professional band. Um, and I booked a Filipino band. I married my husband, then I married a Filipino guy. And then I ran away from the Filipino guy. I had to escape. It was a big deal. I don't have enough time to tell you the whole thing about how I escaped. It was very clever. But anyway, I escaped and I came to California. And my mother was living in California. And then I went to see my friends in San Diego. Stayed with my friends and he was looking for me. Oh, yes, he was. He was looking for me. He came after me, that guy. But he didn't find me. So anyway, yeah. So then here I was in San Diego, and that's how I got to San Diego.
Fleeing an ex-husband.
Huh?
Fleeing an ex-husband, running away.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I had to flee. He was Filipino, and he had ownership ideas. We're old school Filipino. I mean, the ones that are here, they're already Americanized, but old school was different.
Yeah.
He was a very fascinating man. Very, very. He could listen to a song on the jukebox one time. He could reproduce that song, including the guitar solo.
Wow.
I mean, it was mind blowing what he could do. Talk about a musical talent. Yeah, we had a band business together. I booked it. I imported the people. I did immigration, and I was the singer. And then we would have this band, and he was the band leader, and he'd teach them the songs and everything. So everybody would take their turn at the record player and learn their part, and then we put it together.
Wow.
And that's how we did it. Yeah. So, and that was for the military bases.
So what year did you get to San Diego?
I got here in 1981.
So how have you seen our city change?
Well, when I got here, I was with my father and his wife and my half brother, and we went to La Jolla, and we saw Ella Ruth Piggy. Do you know who she was? This was before your time. She was one of the most amazing jazz vocalists you can imagine. So of course I fell in love with the city and the jazz culture and the whole thing. And how has it changed? Well, at the time it was a military town, but if you want to talk about Chula Vista, there was nothing really much beyond 805.
Yeah.
No, 805, everything past 805 is like luxurious, it's nice,
Yeah.
but there wasn't anything like that then. I lived in, first I lived in Old Town, and then I lived in Hillcrest, actually. And then I lived in Pacific Beach, and then La Jolla. And yeah, it's just grown enormously. It's much less provincial because there's a lot of different people, but you still have the provincial qualities in the East County, and still have the military presence. I mean, I just think people are a lot more Mexican people, of course, and a lot more wealthy Mexican people.
Yeah.
So, that's what I can see from my perspective. I mean, I think everything was there. This is what, 20, 30 years, 30
It'll be
years ago.
40
years ago.
40 years ago next
40,
year.
I've been here for 40 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love San Diego. I do. I do. I remember when Bill and I would take a trip somewhere and we'd come back and watch us land on the plane. And we always had that thrill, like, here we are, we're coming home. We love it. Even no matter how much we love where we're at, we loved our home. And we would see that runway and it was just a thrill to be back.
Well, Judy, what can we, as an office, as a group here, what can we do for you?
For me, well, I crave connection. I loved teaching those classes about open houses because I got to know some of the newbies and kind of help them and be able to. They would come to my open houses and I would mentor them a bit. So I like to have more connection. I do. Not quite sure what that looks like. Maybe teach something online. I don't know.
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
I mean, I do participate as much as I can in the activities. Now that we can do a lot online, it's easier for me because I don't have to drive back and forth.
Who would have ever thought we'd have technology down this well?
Well, I'm working on it, believe me.
You're doing great.
I'm seeing Clarissa about every other week, because she's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I had a chance to work with her. So technology is my biggest. I mean, I don't totally understand Facebook. It's still a little mystery to me, but I'm working on it. And then, command is, kind of another thing. So yeah, definitely technology. What can you do for me? Help me with technology whenever I ask. Be in my come see my my Zoom program. Participate in it. It's
Send
really,
us a link. Send me a link and I'll make sure everybody gets it.
I will. Yeah, I've got the link. I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
I think it. People who come on it, they really like it. I mean, we used to have Corrine was on it a lot, and what's it called? Paul. Robert Paul.
Yep.
He was
Rob
on it
Paul.
a lot. They haven't been on it that much lately, but I've been using all the people who are our preferred vendors to interview them on there. Most of them were delighted to do it, and I need more guests. Definitely need more guests.
Okay.
So I've got Ed Valiski. He's gonna be our next guest on Friday.
Great.
And see what he has to say. I have Iris and Andy and I are doing this program, but mostly it's me.
Good.
So yeah, and let's see what else. What else do I need? I need lunches with people. I do like to be social, yes. And I just want to tell everybody that I really do, even though I don't show it, I really do care about you guys, and I really do love you, and I'm so grateful to have you, the office. I really
As
do.
we are grateful and again, you've been there as long as I have practically, and you've got a heart as big as the moon.
Thank you. I also need to learn how to take listings, not to take them, but to find them. I don't know how to find listings. I mean, I used to do open houses, and now I do get a lot of leads now because I'm advertising on Google. Here's what I'm advertising. Chula Vista foreclosures. They love it. They eat it up.
Wow.
People believe that there are foreclosures.
As long as it gets the phone to ring, right?
But yeah, well, right. Yeah. I mean, so, I'm getting quite a few leads, but the listings are, I got to do something more. And I wanted to I interviewed Susan. She gets most of her leads by referral. I do respect her so much.
Yeah.
And I was going to interview Amy, but I guess what happened was with the COVID, she kind of got distracted. So I should ask her again. I want to know more about how to get listings.
I know Amy and Peggy have been doing a lot of holding each other accountable to cold calling. So it'd be a great conversation to have.
Okay. Wow, that's nice of them. I have an accountability partner too, by the way, but she's
Great.
not in real estate. She's a coach.
Yeah.
So so that helps. Yeah.
It does help. It does help. And I love that you got your garage done or mostly done. That's
Oh my God. It's like, okay, here's what it is. Now, Robert wanted to know about me and about Bill. But here's the deal. I've been living in a mausoleum for the last 6 years.
yeah,
But now it's my house.
good.
So I'm changing it to be my house. It's now my house. And this was a long time coming. I have to
Sometimes
throw
it takes
away
a while.
It really did. I had to throw away things that are his. I gave a bunch of shirts to my grandson. That was great. I loved that. And an ab machine. So that is a progress for me, a big progress.
It is, and it opens your energy flow so much. So I'm very happy for you for that.
Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. And I just couldn't see it. The reason I can do it is because Frank was my assistant for a while, and then he helps me with my taxes. And I asked him if he'd like to help me come over and get rid of stuff in my house, and he said yes. So he comes over every week or two, and he helps me move heavy boxes and do things that I can't really do very well by myself.
Yeah.
So and because he's coming, I have to work on the house because he's coming. So I have something for him to
It's
do.
accountability.
Yes.
Ah,
Yeah.
all right, hon. Well, we'll figure out. I'll come down. We'll set a time to go to lunch.
Oh, I would love that so much.
Yeah,
Pick your
for
brain.
sure.
Well,
For
you
sure.
know, I just hope that my message about how we are ourselves are responsible for prejudice. And it doesn't mean that we're prejudiced against somebody, but the thinking has to change. And the thinking is what brings us to that point. And when you hear somebody talk that way, you need to say something. You need to say, hey, you know, the way I know you is you're really very nice and sweet person. What's this about? What's going on,
Yep.
Something that's not like confrontive, but still confrontive. I'm learning.
Yep. We all are.
Mhm.
All right, hon. Have a great week.
Thank
Thank you
you so
again
much
for
for
early
having me.
morning. Look, you get to start your day now.
Great. Do you give me a recording of this or
Evie can get it to you. It's on our YouTube channel. So yes, you can have it. Absolutely.
YouTube? Yeah, I just need it. Like, I don't know about putting links on this and that, how to move these things around very well. But yeah, I would.
We'll get it to you, and if
Okay.
I can help you with it if need be.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, everybody. Robert, thanks for asking that question. I appreciate it. Carmen, thanks for chiming in. Sandra, I see you. I hope you liked it. I love you. Thank you, guys.
Love you, Judy.
Bye-bye.